When Jesus heard that John had been arrested, he withdrew to Galilee. He left Nazareth and went to live in Capernaum by the sea, in the region of Zebulun and Naphtali, that what had been said through Isaiah the prophet might be fulfilled. Land of Zebulun and land of Naphtali, the way to the sea beyond the Jordan, Galilee of the Gentiles. The people who sit in darkness have seen a great light. On those dwelling in a land overshadowed by death, light has arisen. From that time on, Jesus began to preach and say, "Repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand." As he was walking by the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Simon, who is called Peter, and his brother Andrew, casting a net into the sea. They were fishermen. He said to them, "Come after me, and I will make you fishers of men." At once they left their nets and followed him. He walked along from there and saw two other brothers, James, the son of Zebedee, and his brother John. They were in a boat with their father Zebedee, mending their nets. He called them, and immediately they left their boat and their father and followed him. He went around all of Galilee, teaching in their synagogues, proclaiming the gospel of the kingdom, and curing every disease and illness among the people. The gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
If you are wondering about the tree here in the sanctuary, well, the official end of Christmastide is in fact 40 days after Christ's birth on February 2nd, when we celebrate the Feast of the Presentation. Actually, the Vatican keeps its creche in St. Peter's Square until then. So we are trying to keep our tree for the final lighting on that day, also known as Candlemas, the day when we bless the candles which will light the church for the whole year. Let's just pray we don't light it on fire before then. Christmas really is much more than just one day. In fact, just the feast itself takes a whole octave, or 8 days of solemn liturgy to celebrate. And within that octave are a number of feasts that we celebrate each year, except for one which must be skipped. You see, the Feast of the Holy Family is movable, which means it is always celebrated on the first Sunday after Christmas. It's a huge holiday we don't want anyone to miss. But as a consequence, one of the other feasts is sacrificed that year. So every few years we miss St. Stephen or St. John. This year we unfortunately missed the Feast of the Holy Innocents. And since this past Thursday, January 22nd, was the day of prayer for the legal protection of the unborn children, I thought today might be a good day to talk about the Holy Innocents. Just to remind everyone, the Holy Innocents are the babies of Bethlehem that Herod had slaughtered after he found out the Magi had snuck away from Israel without returning to inform him of the location of the newborn King of the Jews, Jesus. So Herod ordered all of the male children in Bethlehem under 2 years old to be killed to ensure that any usurper to his throne was done away with. Of course, what he didn't know was that Joseph had taken Jesus and Mary away to Egypt at the prompting of an angel. Today also winds up a week of prayer for Christian unity, which made me think about something that we are united about, even doctors and biologists. And that is the question, when does life begin? I think we all agree that life begins at conception. Now, can life sustain itself at conception? No, it needs its mother. But neither can an infant survive on its own. It needs care. They're not only innocent, but they are pretty much helpless. That's one of the reasons we are so appalled at the murder of the innocents by King Herod, because they are so helpless. The reason January 22nd is used as the day of prayer for the unborn is because that was the day Roe versus Wade made abortion legal. It attempted to dehumanize a baby that hadn't reached a certain level of development. We prayed long and hard to have a reversal of that ruling, which did happen, but as a consequence, the Supreme Court said it was something a state should decide, which in fact made it worse in some states. For example, in Oregon, a baby isn't safe until it's actually born. Different states have different stages of development when abortion can be done legally, but I just can't understand a health system that will tirelessly struggle to save one child born prematurely, and yet can legally, purposely kill another at the same stage of development and treat it as garbage. This last year, on April 22nd, I was called to Silverton Hospital. I don't remember exactly where the child was in its development. I think it was between 20 and 30 weeks. But it was born way too early, and it did not survive. It was a boy, and he was only like 6 to 8 inches long, but the family wanted him blessed. When I got there, the nurses had him in a blue newborn hat and blanket, and the parents were devastated at the loss of their son. They had named him Jose. He couldn't survive outside of the womb, but he was still a baby boy, a human soul. He wasn't garbage. I blessed his human remains, and I commended his soul unto God in heaven. The unborn are truly helpless. That's why we must continue to pray and fight for the legal protection of these holy innocents.